Hello and welcome along to our next sort of video session. As you probably are aware by now, sort of my brother and I have started our own company within the sports industry, Technical Sports Services, doing often various things to different sports and different clubs. You know what people might be looking for. Sean's previously spoke about what would be involved in the swimming side of things, the things that we can offer swimming clubs and organisations. Primarily, I'm here tonight to talk you through what we can offer sort of American football clubs. But before we kind of get into that, just a bit of a background on my involvement. I've been involved with the sport for about 6 years. I've followed it from a lot longer than that. I've been a player. I had a brief stint as a youth and junior coach, and training as an official. So I'm heavily involved in the sport, and I kind of want to be able to provide assistance in a way to the clubs around the country, of which there are a lot, and it's the numbers kind of ever growing, just to make sure that we're covering ourselves, we're making sure we're when it comes to documentation, we're sorted, we're in working order to protect the people involved and the clubs themselves, and just kind of when it comes to the on-field stuff, try and develop ourselves as well. Our game's come a long way, even in the 6 years since I started playing. So it's just to try and keep advancing that in ways that we can offer services to help do that. So I am involved heavily. I enjoy every element about the sport, but particularly due to my time playing so far, I have been, sort of a big involvement in the scouting, the film sessions, the analysis, and it kind of almost inspired me to create my own sort of database report systems on opposition teams, and that from my position, it was primarily defenses, but it can apply to offenses or anything like that. We'll go through that a little bit later, but just before we do, just a couple of things that we can offer the American football community, things that are important. Various things like documentation writing, especially just now during this pandemic. There's obviously a bit of a staggered return to practice, or some COVID safe practices. Some people aren't allowed back, but it's important that we have the right documentation for the COVID procedures, for example, in place for the players, for the staff, for anyone involved in the team. But out with that situation, just general documentation that again is there designed to help protect the teams and all their members, from coaches to players to helpers, whoever it is. Ultimately, these documents are in place to protect everyone involved and make sure that everyone can enjoy the sport safely. So a couple of things, like you've got club constitutions, especially now that that's becoming a bigger thing under BAFA, making sure that you have something like that in place. We've got previous experience doing this. We were heavily involved with writing the one at our previous club. Involved with the swimming side, and ultimately club constitutions aren't hugely different in that aspect, but there's a lot of work needs to go into them to make sure that they're covering the right things. Code of conduct, again, hugely important. As much as for protecting the players from themselves, as well as protecting the players from the coaches from the players, etc. Making sure everyone's safe. And it gives a guideline, and that kind of set out, so players know no one can be unfairly treated, coaches know no one can be unfairly treated. Here's what the lines are, and this is how we deal with things. Things like an EAP template, anti-discrimination and bullying, child protection and vulnerable young adult welfare. Again, especially if you're going to be doing sort of youth and junior programs as well, hugely important. got to protect the young people, the children, the young adults. And online social media statements and stuff, I think, coming from an amateur sport, I think generally, often it's quite easy to put out media statements that aren't right. And although we're not directly, in touch with national media, newspapers, or whatever, it's making sure we say the right things. Like keep a lot of things indoors, but be able to make things clear and what we want to do. Obviously, one of our primary things outside of documentation to offer is game film data analysis. It's kind of what I'm heavily involved in. As I say, I've done it for my own teams. I still continue to do it for my own teams. For my benefit, as well as theirs. And I think it can certainly help. Every single coach at any level has some sort of, perhaps bias or not necessarily a pattern, but they have traits. A certain coach might always like to run the ball on first down, and that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get a run every time. It doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get any specific type of run, but it ultimately helps you prepare for what you are most likely to see. And in general, I've kind of found that to be, pretty helpful when it comes to actually playing the game, because you can prepare better. You're ready for the game. You're ready to kind of operate with what you're expecting to see in front of you. So, I'm going to walk you through it. It's perhaps not hugely complicated. The report that I've produced for a test sheet was based off an actual live game defense. I for the sake of this, I've not named any teams because there's no purpose to it, other than to show you what it looks like. But ultimately, with anything like this, you can customize it. If you want us to do something specific, you might simply tell us, you know what, can you look at the film for us? And I just want you to tell me how many times they run the ball. Fine, we can do that. That's not a problem. Or I want you to look at the film and tell us how many times they blitzed the middle linebacker. Fine, that's up to you. It's entirely up to you what you want. And we can kind of make that happen and give you a full report on it. Whatever it is you need. I mean, we understand, game film is time consuming, and coaches and players, because it's an amateur sport, we all work jobs. So if it's something we can help provide you with that'll help your teams improve, then that's kind of what we want to do. So I'm just going to quickly share the screen. I'm going to kind of walk you through it, just kind of showing you, exactly what it is that we kind of do here. Just make sure that's working first. Doesn't appear to work. There we go. So I'll share that there. Okay, so hopefully you can all see that. You may have seen this on our launch video, but it was kind of quickly skimmed through to talk you through it. Exactly what was going to be in one of these reports. But again, as I say, these things can be customized. You might want to know about the offense, the defense, both run game, pass game. It is entirely up to you. Now, an important thing to note about this as well is while this is particularly focused on one defense from one game, it's based off of my knowledge of the game. You might feel like you would probably know the film better than I do, and that's fine, but you still want the end result of the report. Again, that's also fine. All we would ask is for you to populate the information we ask for, and we can produce it accordingly. So, if it all can be customized to what you are looking for. For example, you might want to just specifically know how many times and what down and distance they run out of a formation. Again, you might want to give us that raw information so that we can give you a report. Anyway, if we just scroll through, okay, so just about content, we'll go through quarter by quarter. Success rate per quarter and yardage, quarter by quarter pass run split, run pass yards against for the defense, obviously, their full defensive breakdown for the game, their full coverage tendencies by percentage, their defensive package by down and distance, and kind of just summing it all up. So if we just kind of go through, the first quarter, what I've done with this is I've put the down the distance, whatever front they were in, whatever coverage we're in, any blitz package, and then I've done the result of the play. So for example, the third play of the game, the opposition offense has ran it and they've ran it for 7 yards. You might want to know exactly which player ran the ball. Again, that's fine. It can be added. You might, so you can kind of focus on key players. These sort of things can all be added in. This is just a very basic demonstration of one of what we can offer. Okay, so again, similar situation for the second quarter. Again, all the totals are available. They're not particularly to contribute to anything in this page. However, again, it might be something you're looking to kind of get more of an insider knowledge at, and you might have some use for that information. Again, quarter 3 and quarter 4, same boat. And as you can probably see straight off the bat, looking through the team that I've taken the defensive film for, it was cover 3 heavy. There was a lot of 44 stack cover 3 defense. And they didn't really come out of it that much except for in the red zone, but we'll get to that in a minute. So although this is quite a vanilla one, you might find that it's a lot more complicated depending on who it is that you want the report done for. So again, success rate. I've kind of addressed at the bottom of this sheet. I've got the total passes runs. Now, this success rate is based on the offensive success rate, so how much was given up by the opposing defense. Because in this situation, we're obviously looking at the defense as if you're trying to attack it. So it's looking at the success rate. So 71% of passes were successful and 50% of the runs were successful. Now, if you'll see down below, what I've done is I've kind of explained to you success factors. Now, I've just based them off my own, kind of in my head, what I would view it as. And in this particular case, a completion is a successful pass. Now, you might want it to be a completion that goes over 3 yards. You might want it to be a completion that goes over 5 yards. I'm not sure, but in this case, we've just set it as a pass completion is a successful pass. A run being successful has been deemed as a run that is 3 or more yards. Again, you might deem a successful run as 2 yards. That's fine. You might deem a successful run as 5 yards. That is also fine. These things can be adjusted so that you get an understanding of the success factor you're looking for. There's a breakdown behind each part of this. It's not just, I won't just give the numbers to you. I want to at least give you some insight into what teams are doing and that sort of thing. So in this game, I've spoke about how the one I looked at, they generally in the first half, they were, it was a fairly even split. There was fairly close run and pass through the first 3 quarters. But what you found was, the team, the offensive team in this case, began to trail late into the third quarter, and that's why you see a significant more amount of passes in the fourth. Now, this again could be slightly misleading without the context, because you don't know why all of a sudden the defense was facing so many passes. So I like to give you that context so that you know. Knowing obviously what I then know about this defense, although there was a lot more passes thrown and there was a higher success rate, they also had 2 takeaways on 2 interceptions. So it just kind of goes to show you that while the successful ones were successful, the unsuccessful ones were, catastrophic per se, with turnovers. So it just gives you a bit more meat to the bone. You're not just looking at the raw numbers, which can be misleading at times. Okay, so if we just move on down, this is just quarter by quarter. And again, it's kind of just to explain what I've previously said. Again, slightly more run, slight swing change you see in the third quarter as the game started to turn, and then the fourth quarter, which became heavy pass for the offense. Now, you might find in this situation that a team that you particularly scouted from, say, a defensive point of view, they maybe played a lot of man coverage with blitz packages all the way through the game, and then all of a sudden in the fourth quarter, they're running a lot more zone, no blitzes, and they're dropping 8. And without the context, you won't understand why. So the whole point of making sure that this context is there is so you know that, okay, maybe they did run quite a heavy proportion of this particular coverage and this particular blitz package, but there was a reason for that. In this case, it's not the case. The kind of the defense sticks to what they know and they did the whole way through the game. But you still see that how that kind of switch up from the offense still kind of affects things. Rushing pass yards, again, although this is an offensive stat, you want to look at, if you're attacking this defense, you want to look at exactly what kind of things they've gained, yardage wise, through the air, through the run. You might want to kind of base any sort of decision off that. If you see a particular team gives up 50 rush yards and gives up 500 pass yards, I'd like to think that your first thought is going to be, okay, then we're really going to have to want to attack this team in the pass. They clearly got quite a stingy defensive front for run, but their secondary is a bit lacking. So it's just a little more context. Again, you're talking about they gained almost 2.5 pass yards to every rush yard. So this is just kind of a full game breakdown of the defense. So you kind of see the front, the coverage, the blitz package. And again, like we'd alluded to earlier with this particular game, you get an idea that for the vast majority of this game, the defense that you're going to be facing this week are going to be sitting in 44 cover 3 with no blitz. That might not be as simple and straightforward for another team, but that predominantly that's what you're going to get on a whole. Now, to give more context to that, we'll carry on, we'll go through it, and you'll see, how that, it's not misleading, but how that is a very broad overview of what you're going to get. There's more sort of in-depth analysis that needs to be carried out through that. So if we just go down, just their full coverage tendencies by percentage. Now, although teams might change up their front a lot, very unusual, you'd expect to see a team use a similar front that, at least for the vast majority of the game, no matter what kind of level it is. A lot of the time, if you see a team that plays a 4-man front, they'll continue to play a 4-man front. So generally what you're looking at is how they change up the coverage. Because you can take a defensive front for what it is and work out where the weaknesses are going to be with that. But you want to know what they're kind of doing on the back end of that. And kind of like we alluded to earlier, you see even more so that, 84% of the time they ran cover 3, so, and when you kind of put that into context, they ran 49 defensive snaps and only 8 of them were in an alternative coverage to cover 3. So, again, it allows you to kind of understand that on a game day, you want your best cover 3 plays on your play sheet so that you know what you're going to be facing. And you know that when you go in, this is how you're attacking them. This is what's going on. Okay, so, then you kind of, this is where the real in-depth stuff happens. It's all right to know that a team has ran 49 defensive snaps and so many of them are in 44 cover 3 with no blitz. But this is where tendency comes into things. You want to know what your opposition is going to do. You'll never know exactly what they're going to do. Coaches, whether they're offense or defense, they throw trick plays, they throw different things in there to try and throw you off. But if you have a general understanding of what you can expect, you can increase your odds of having the right play called at the right time and allow your players to know exactly what to look for. So you just kind of go through here, we're talking about like what they do on 1st and 10 over, 1st and 10, 1st and short, second, this long, 2nd and 10, sorry, 2nd and medium, 2nd and short, 3rd and long, 3rd and short, and 4th. So you kind of get an understanding here, you're looking at your counts, and again, sort of 1st and 10 was where the vast majority of the plays were ran, and the vast majority were 44 cover 3 with no blitz. Not really surprising in this case, but you might find that a team runs 44 cover 3 with no blitz behind it, but every 1st down and 10, they blitz either a strong side or a weak side linebacker for no reason whatsoever, only over on 1st and 10. Now, again, that's a helpful hint. You then know what to expect from them. You're on the watch out for it, and for example, your quarterback knows who he's looking for to come through. So when you kind of apply that depth, it gives you just a bit of it breaks it out. It makes it more understandable. It makes it easier to see. And all of a sudden you start to see, well, okay, 1st and more than 10, it's cover 4 or cover 3. Now, generally what they did when they went to cover 4 is they sacrificed the defensive lineman, and they switched up to sort of a 3-4 front, sort of on the couple of plays that were run sort of over 1st and 10. But again, between 3 and 4, you get sort of that understanding of it's going to be deep zone setting off, generally not try to put pressure on the quarterback, kind of just putting faith in their defensive line and leaving sort of plenty of guys in coverage. And you go into 1st and 10, and again, heavy split goes into the 44 cover 3. But you start to see that on 1st and 10, they'll throw in the odd blitz, a buck linebacker, a Sam linebacker, and on the odd occasion, again, they'll still employ that 34 cover 4 look. Then we head into 1st and goal, and this is where the in-depth is so important. From 1st and short or 1st and goal, they didn't run cover 3 once. So, which makes sense, right? I mean, a lot of defensive coaches probably sitting there thinking, obviously, I understand that, but you kind of want to know what they're more likely to do in these situations. So you see there's kind of that switch up, the stay in the 44 front, now into cover 0, cover 1, and there's nearly always a blitz behind it. And, it just shows that kind of change in mentality that once you get sort of into that short situation, all of a sudden that coverage idea is dropped and you know the heat's coming. Again, it allows you to just drop your best plays so you know exactly where the ball's going. Quarterback or whatever in that situation doesn't have to think too much, and it's just a case of ball gone and you know who you're looking for. Again, like 1st and 10, 2nd and 10 is once again sort of cover 3 heavy with some cover 4. Kind of going back to what is their base defense. 2nd and short, what you kind of start to see here again is that although the cover 3 stays, when it comes to short yardage, they start to send a blitz. And whether it's the buck linebacker, Sam backer, Will backer, or Sam and Will backer, they tend to start using a bit more pressure when the down and distance gets short. Again, 3rd and long, they ain't going to change from what they like to do. The only thing that's really going to kind of happen here is that on occasion, they're going to send a blitz. But outside of that, generally, it's prevent defense, 3rd and long, cover 3, sitting deep. Once again, now on 3rd and short, we'll go down to these short yardage situations, and the defense in question becomes more of a cover 1 defense. But they also will either do that or bring pressure. Now, generally, what we only seen was them bringing the Mike linebacker on a blitz in these 3rd and short situations. Again, as they've tended to show, in short yardage, they will start to bring pressure. They'll either change up to their cover 1, cover 0 look, or they're going to start to bring heat from somewhere. It again helps you be prepared, helps you be more aware. It's kind of just going through what I was just explaining there. Just knowing that, try to give you more detail, try to give you more understanding of exactly what it is you're looking for. Now, what we can do with this as well is, if you would like, a couple of snapshots, what does that defensive setup look like? Maybe they start off by showing you a cover 2 look, and then the corners bail out, and we get that more 3. You can't see that in the stats. You can't see that in writing. So again, snapshots can be added. We can include clips to kind of show these things so that you can best prepare for what you're going to see. You might have a particular position on the opposition team that always simulates a blitz. Again, you can kind of identify that and know, be prepared for it come game day. Just kind of a summary. It's just a quick look. We're just, I've kind of been vague with it here, but just saying that, they show what they intend to do. It's given that context to it. So basically they set up with deep corners and a deep middle safety, and they don't really try and hide what they do. Again, this is a lot more simplistic than some of the defenses you'll see out there, but this is just an example. And it's kind of getting that understanding that you know what you need to do to maintain drives. You want to go after the shallow outsides. You want to get the linebackers dropping and run draw plays. You want to be able to get these defenses to do what they are used to doing and then hit them where they're weakest. So having this information allows you to make the best possible plan to attack what you're going to see that week. I've used this sort of stuff, since I've started playing. I've found it successful. Gives me less to think about on the day because I know that there's preparation behind, and it's always a good, useful tool to get using. Okay, so if we're just that's kind of that. That's just an example one for you. As I say, it can have as much or as little detail as you like. It's entirely up to you what you want. We can make these things customized to you. It sounds silly, but you maybe want more pictures in it. You want more clear showing of what the defense does or the offense does, or might be even special teams. You might decide you want some special teams scout. Fine, that's not a problem. It is up to you what you like to include in these things, and it is up to you how much trust you put on myself and us to analyze the film. As I say, I've done it for a lot of years, but if you feel more comfortable giving us the raw data, we can still produce the reports for you. These things are useful. They're the kind of things you can send to your players. You might have guys in your team that really struggle to watch film and understand it. This allows you to really coach into these guys what they're expecting to see. Allows your receivers to know what they're going to see, allows your defense to know what they're going to see out of the offense, and it just allows people to develop more of an understanding of the game. And as far as I'm concerned, the more prepared you are, the more coached you are on these things, the better your team is going to be. So obviously there's several things that we're looking to offer teams. As I say, we've spoken about kind of the documentation side, hugely important, especially just now. And I understand that, for a lot of amateur teams, which are set up by people who maybe aren't particularly well versed in these sort of things, that it can be quite daunting. But it's imperative we have this kind of stuff in place. So, if that is the kind of thing you would like us to help out with, then I would implore people to kind of get in touch. Regarding the stats side, obviously we're not playing any games at the moment. I kind of understand that. But, it's certainly a useful tool, and it allows you to get more of an understanding. And again, rather than relying on individuals to put in each the time and understanding that some of them don't have yet, it gives them a more in-depth look at things, and it makes it easier to coach based on what you're expecting to see. I hope it's been useful. I hope you found this quite quite good, something you might want to consider using. You can get in touch with us, and we're more than happy to help. Obviously, again, I found it useful. I hope you will as well, and maybe we can help you guys deliver some wins for your team going forward. Right, cheers. Bye.